who played their way both on and off the Baltimore Ravens roster in the Week 2 preseason loss to the Washington Commanders. We talk about that and so much more coming up next year on this episode of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making us your first listen each and every day here on the show. We're free and available, of course, all podcasting platforms, audio form, video form, you name it. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lower price, guaranteed. We are back here. First day without the Ravens having a preseason streak in quite a few years as they lose to the Washington Commanders 29-28 on a last-second field goal by Joey Sly. It was a preseason game that honestly, it had Super Bowl intensity to it because it felt like the Commanders really wanted to end the Ravens preseason streak. And honestly, it didn't really feel like the Ravens wanted to win. We'll talk a bit about what I mean by that in the show, so you got to stay tuned for my hot takes on the game. But we're going to be diving into a lot today. We did a live stream right after the fact. I'm recording this, just a few hours after that. So late nights always after those primetime games, preseason or not. So if you listen to the live stream, I appreciate you tuning in back here, the 6 a.m. version. If you're here listening, but you didn't catch the live stream, be sure to check that out in video form on YouTube. We're live streaming, obviously, and then audio form as well. It is there. But let's talk a little bit. I want to differentiate. So let's talk a bit about what the Ravens did as a whole from a team perspective. But I first want to dive into who actually played their way on or off of the roster, because I think we're still not to the cut down day, but there are some players that I'm pretty certain have played their way on the roster, and I'm pretty certain have played their way off of the roster. And I know that next week we'll probably be talking about, well, who actually secured a roster spot. But for now, some decisions could possibly be made. I'm not a guy who speaks in absolutes and say, 100% certain, but we can make some assumptions. So we'll talk about that in the first part of the show. We'll then talk about the streak, the more team performance, everything in the second part. Then we'll hand out some grades, player grades, offense grades, defense grades. So plenty to talk about on today's show. Let's first start, though, with who played their way on or off of the roster. So this is kind of is a different take on the whole stock up, stock down, winners and losers thing, but it's in a preseason way because we obviously know the Ravens did not play their starters against the Commanders. The Commanders did outside of their offensive line. They played their offensive starters pretty much into halftime. And for Baltimore, you're going up against these guys like Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson and Sam Howell and Curtis Samuel, and you're out there, you're Kevon Seymour, you're Delshon Phillips, and no disrespect to any of the guys who played, obviously, right? But it's a step up from the competition that maybe they're going up against or they're expected to go up against at the NFL level on a consistent basis. So I thought that players did a good job. Other players did not do a good job. Let's start off with Keaton Mitchell. Why not, right? Keaton Mitchell's a guy who's had a lot of hype. I've been in on Keaton Mitchell for the longest time. Even before the draft, I was saying, hey, you want to get a late-round running back if you're a team? Get a Keaton Mitchell, get a Dwayne McBride. Those are my guys. They get Keaton Mitchell undrafted free agency. 1 carry for 31 yards for Keaton Mitchell. We saw the explosiveness from him and the speed element. And something I talked about on the live stream was the fact that he adds an element that the Ravens don't really have. JK's a bruiser. Gus Edwards is a bruiser. Justice Hill is an underrated bruiser with some electricity to him. But Keaton Mitchell is that super fast, you can't catch me type of guy, small. And the Ravens, they don't necessarily have that type of build, that type of skill set. So that's why I think, to me, if we're talking about positional battles, which battles were won, I think that ultimately Keaton Mitchell outplayed Melvin Gordon in this game, even though he only had the 1 carry. Now, he did go down with the injury on a kickoff return. John Harbaugh said there were no serious injuries after the game, so hopefully that stands true, and Keaton Mitchell will be back on the field soon. But if this isn't a health situation, I think Keaton Mitchell did a heck of a job on Monday night of proving that this is a guy the Ravens should have on their roster. Plus, he was putting in work on special teams as a kick returner, as I mentioned, but also he played some gunner. And if there's a way to get on the roster in a John Harbaugh-led team, you do it through special teams. And so I think, and Keaton Mitchell's a good running back too, right? Don't get me wrong, but I think he did a good job. Another guy who I think played his way onto the roster was definitely Tylan Wallace. There's been a lot of speculation about who's going to be the sixth wide receiver. Essentially, the first five spots are all but taken up with Odell, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, Devin Duvernay. But that sixth wide receiver spot, and I know there's no guarantee they keep six, but the sweet spot for me, I think five is just a little too little, I guess, and seven is a bit too many. But I think six is just right. And for that sixth spot, they're, competing with Tylan Wallace and James Prochet and Dante Demas and Laquan Treadwell and other Sean Ryan, other players. Tylan Wallace scores a touchdown for the second consecutive week. Obviously, we know his special teams value. Other players, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, did not help their case for that spot. So I think Tylan Wallace has all but assured his place on the roster. I think he definitely played his way onto the roster in this game here. And I think it's the right call. I had Dante Demas as my pick very early on in the offseason once the draft ended, but I kind of shifted Tylan Wallace before training camp started because it just made more sense. And this, obviously, I think is the way that is. Now, one very interesting player is Travis Vokolek. I don't think he played his way on or off of the roster. There's no way he played his way off of it. He had 2 touchdown catches, made a really nice impact on the game. But in terms of playing his way on the roster, I think he played his way into Baltimore making a tough decision. Because what you have now is ideally you keep 3 tight ends of the Ravens and then be able to sneak Travis Vokolek on the practice squad. Obviously, your tight ends are Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar. With the performance he's had in training camp and in the preseason's first 2 games, I am not so sure that Travis Vokolek is going to make it through waivers to get on the Ravens practice squad. So if you want to have an 100% certainty of keeping him, you have to do it by keeping him on the roster. But that takes away from a position where I highlight is in the secondary, where you have to keep Marlon Humphrey and Pepe Williams on that 53-man roster until after cut down day, or else if you put them on IR before, as I've talked about, they're done for the season. So there's a lot that goes into a decision like this of keeping a guy at tight end when you need secondary members. I don't think the Ravens will do it. I would love them to, but I don't think they will. And so that will maybe lead to a Nate McCrary situation is the one I go back to. And the Ravens wanted to keep him on their practice squad, but ultimately got claimed by Denver, and the rest is history there, although it wasn't a very long history for Nate McCrary, unfortunately. But Vokolek's a guy that I was very impressed by. I think defensively, Darius Washington's a guy who played his way onto the roster. Now, this is kind of a bold one because I'm not sure the Ravens keep 7 corners. Actually, now that I think about it, I mean, the way their corner room is right now, they might have to, even if it means getting rid of a guy like, a linebacker or an offensive lineman, which is tough to do, but they just have had so many injuries there. But I think Darius Washington, if the season were to start today, he will be the Ravens starting slot corner. He was incredible on Monday night, making plays, tackles, pass breakups. He was everywhere on the field. He has both corner and safety versatility. He's a guy I would want on my roster if I was building one, and I think he definitely did that. Now, players who played their way off of the roster. I think James Prochet, not that he was ever firmly on it, but I think James Prochet with another, I really do kind of feel bad for him in a sense. It just feels like he's had all these bad luck plays happen to him over the course of the past couple of months, has never really found his footing with the Ravens in the NFL, but ends up having a play where he gets thrown the ball by Josh Johnson. And I do want to be clear, the throw by Josh Johnson was underthrown. It was not a perfect throw by any stretch of the imagination, but James Prochet goes up for it. Doesn't necessarily play an underthrow perfectly, but the ball goes through his hands, results in an interception, and honestly turns the tides of that first half a little bit. And it's unfortunate for a guy that I think has put in so much work, seems like a super nice guy. We've heard the stories about him, obviously all hands team at SMU in college, but just has not been able to put it together at the NFL level. And with him not doing anything in this game, I don't think he had a catch in this game. I'm looking over the box score quickly. He did not have a catch in this game. No, he did. He did 1 catch for 7 yards on 2 targets. But outside of that 1 catch, did not do anything. It just feels like Tylan Wallace has taken over that spot, and I don't think he's given it to James Prochet. Another guy who I think maybe played his way off the roster, again, not that he was ever on it, was Corey Mayfield, the corner who gave up the pass interference on that 4th down, essentially lost the Ravens the game. He was one of those guys that I was kind of between, like, is he going to make the practice squad? If he steps up in this game, could he maybe vie for a 7th cornerback spot? Or Darius Washington is far and ahead away. Kevon Seymour is far and ahead away, Darryl Worley, etc. Corey Mayfield is so far down on the list. I don't even know, I don't even think he makes the practice squad. So he might have played his way off the Ravens practice squad with his performance he had. There are other stock down guys we can talk about. Trenton Simpson didn't have a great game. He made a couple plays, but had a lot of bad ones. Caillou Kelly, I will give him credit. I'll give Caillou Kelly a lot of credit for the play he had on that 2-point conversion, but struggled elsewhere. So I think at the end of the day, and one more guy I'll mention, Anthony Brown. I don't think he played his way off the roster. I just don't think he played his way on it. Like, I think him and Josh Johnson are still where they were before the game started. Johnson is the 3, Brown is the 4. We'll see how the last preseason game shapes up. But Brown's a guy who I don't think passed Josh Johnson. Their offensive line-wise, I'm pretty sure they're going to go with John Simpson. I'm not exactly sure. Obviously, I just don't think Salah's ready yet. And Ben Cleveland, I feel like, is a backup for them. So there were a couple guys who definitely did play their way onto the roster. I was very impressed with them. But unfortunately, a couple guys who played their way off of it as well. We'll come up in the second part of the show. We'll talk a little bit about the Ravens streak. We will mourn the end of it. Not really. It wasn't that big of a deal. We'll talk about it ending and just the whole narrative situation behind it. Plus, we'll get more into the game, takeaways from that. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll have to dive into on Locked On Ravens. But first, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. And there are a bunch of times when people get super stressed out trying to buy tickets. You're trying to find them last minute. You're looking for the best price. You're competing with other buyers for a popular event. But buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. And obviously, the Ravens, they play the Texans in week 1. If you want to find tickets for that, you should go over to Gametime, check out what they have. And some of the best things about the Gametime app experience, there are a ton. They have flash deals and last-minute tickets. They have easy to find and buy tickets as well for every kind of event in your area. They have images of the seat view, so you can actually look at where you're sitting and see what it's going to look like. Plus, they have a lowest price guarantee, even event cancellation protection and job loss protection, and so much more. So forget planning months in advance. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Gametime has tickets on the day of the event. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you with 110% of the discount. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know it's the exact place and obviously what you expect when you arrive. Is the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're all set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here, our second part of Locked On Ravens here on Tuesday. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Obviously, Baltimore loses their 24-game preseason win streak. It is no more. Streak since 2015 has officially been broken. The Commanders went on a last-second field goal. And there have been a lot of narratives going on about the Ravens and their streak. They try so hard. And John Harbaugh gave a very spirited answer after the game. And I've always been very hesitant on this show and wherever, in my writing, when tweeting, to say that preseason is essentially meaningless. I think the win-loss aspect is meaningless, but preseason as a whole is not meaningless. I think for the players who are playing, the players that are competing, John Harbaugh made that clear that for people who have never played in the NFL and for, who've never stepped on that field trying to make a roster, it can be hard for them, he said, to envision going out there competing. And that part is not meaningless. And I 100% agree. And that's why I've always been so hesitant to say, oh, the preseason is super meaningless. Nothing these guys do matter. That's not true at all. Guys go out there, guys play hard. The Ravens certainly played hard on Monday night. But from a win-loss perspective, going out there and winning a game is a much better feeling, right? Don't get me wrong. It's better when you win every single time. You rather win than lose. But obviously, since it's the preseason, winning a game does not have the impact that losing does. In fact, it has no impact on the Ravens' success for a season. It can maybe have an impact on a player in terms of whether making a roster or just impressing a coach or putting stuff on tape. But, the actual win-loss record, like since the Commanders are 2-0 in the preseason, the Ravens are 1-1, that part doesn't matter. But it really felt like the Commanders wanted to end the Ravens streak, and it felt like it was a weird thing. Like, it was really weird. Jahan Dotson talked about it after the game. He said, yeah, it feels really good, which, fine. You won a preseason game, you won a game, that's fine. But then he went to say, with what they had on the line, it was really cool. And I sat, Ryan Mink kind of transcribed the quote, and I credit to him for doing so. And I kind of sat there and was looking at what Ryan transcribed, and I was like, I think we can be honest here. I tweeted out, I think we can be honest in the fact that we can appreciate Baltimore's streak, right? We can do that, but also acknowledge that they had nothing on the line in terms of a team organizational perspective of winning and losing. There was nothing on the line for them in terms of a win-loss record. So that was weird. There was a cheap shot, a ridiculous cheap shot by Nick Gates, who's one of the Commanders' offensive linemen, on Ardarius Washington during a touchdown. And then Ardarius Washington was on site. He fought him, and Justin Tucker maybe would have been in on that too if he got his helmet on in time. But he was not. Don't get me wrong. But then Sam Cosme, who's the Commanders' offensive lineman, was grittying, doing dance moves, and it was a weird thing where I think that the Commanders, even though the fact that, they won the game and that's all dandy and all, they did it with their backups at the end, and Jake Fromm was the guy who led that drive down the field. They played Sam Howell. They played Brian Robinson. They played Terry McLaurin. They played their starting offensive group outside of their offensive linemen until halftime, which to me is absolutely crazy in today's NFL. Usually with that second game, well, it used to be the third game when they had 4 preseason games instead of 3, then you would see the starters play about a half. But in today's NFL, the Ravens have seen it firsthand with J.K. Dobbins. It's very hard to justify risking injuries like that. And the Commanders had Terry McLaurin go down with a toe injury, and we don't know the severity of it. The x-rays were negative. Hopefully he's able to come back soon. But it just really felt like the Commanders wanted this win and wanted to be the team that ended the streak. And the Commanders fans were all hyped up and, waving goodbye. Joey Sly gave an L to the Ravens sideline. Like it felt like a Super Bowl game when, again, it's a preseason game and it has a lot of meaning in a lot of different ways. But the win-loss aspect of it is literally meaningless. But I want to talk a bit about the act, enough about the streak. It's over. It was really cool, right? We would always talk about Britton Renner and Matt Schaub and, the last time the Ravens lost a preseason game against the Falcons. But again, it was cool while it lasted. Does not mean anything that it ended, but it's a testament to Baltimore's depth and what they were able to bring to the table for all those years there. But taking a look quickly at some team takeaways, and I did a little bit of this at the very end of the live stream, but just diving into a bit more. Baltimore ended up and quarterback rating is one thing that I don't know how much some people put a lot of stock into, other people don't. Josh Johnson ended up having a 121.9 quarterback rating. Anthony Brown had 68.8. That to me is not super indicative. Like to me, Anthony Brown finished 6 of 10 for 40 yards. Josh Johnson 10 of 12 for 145. I'm very surprised that Anthony Brown, not, the completions that he didn't complete, some were deep shots, but Anthony Brown's had a very low completion, I guess full completion percentage, but a low depth of target, yards per throw. It's been very low for him. The Ravens had a lot of plays with Josh Johnson where, airing the ball out, long touchdown plays. Charlie Kohler, the Ravens were taking deep shots all game. Charlie Kohler had 2 for 61. Zay Flowers made something out of nothing on a couple of plays. Travis Vokolek had a couple touchdowns. But I don't know. It just felt like Anthony Brown wasn't able to get it going from deep. Keaton Mitchell, the running game, Justice Hill, all those guys averaged 5.5 yards per carry. I guess another guy we could throw into that first conversation in the first part of the show about guys who played their way off the roster but weren't really on it was Owen Wright. 9 carries for 10 yards, had to play once Keaton Mitchell went down and did not impress. So maybe he's another guy who maybe played his way off the practice squad is how I'll put that for him. But cornerback-wise for the Ravens, it's a concern. It is a concern. John Harbaugh's had no serious injuries, which is very good because both Kyu Kelly and Ardarius Washington went down, and Kyu Kelly went back in the game. I can't remember if Ardarius Washington did or not by the time the field goal was kicked, but I know Kyu Kelly did, and I know that because on a play where the Ravens blitzed, the Jake Fromm threw it up one-on-one, and there was an incompletion, but Kyu Kelly came back, and he was still kind of gingerly jogging, favoring something. I don't know what it was, but gingerly favoring something. But they're already down Marlon Humphrey. They're already down Rock Yassin and Jalen Davis and Pepe Williams and Arthur Millette. 2 more guys getting injured, getting dinged up. The Ravens have a lot of guys who can play the position. Tay Hayes is someone. Tay Hayes might have played his way on the practice squad. That's another guy. But at this point, the Ravens have to be worried about their cornerback room. That's what I think prompts them to go out there and sign Ronald Darby. Those are let's do a hot take. We'll do a hot take corner to end the segment. One hot take, and I've said this if you've heard it, if you're an everyday, you've probably heard me say it, but I think the Ravens weren't going to go sign a veteran until, or make a move for a veteran until the trade deadline. if Marlon Humphrey did not get injured. I think the Marlon Humphrey injury forced the Ravens to go out there and get a veteran because it just got so bad. But I think Baltimore likes their young guys, which, for an example, for Greedy Williams potentially, which I talked about on the live stream, it'd be cool if it happened. I've been a big Greedy guy since, he was at LSU, but I just don't see it happening because I think Baltimore trusts some of the young guys they already have, and whether that's a good decision, we'll find out. But here's the preseason hot take. I think the Ravens did not play to win on the final drive of the game. I don't. The repeated cover zero that was done by the defense, didn't it feel like Don Martindale took the headset and took the play call sheet from Mike McDonald and said, "Move over, I'm doing this," and just called blitz after blitz. It's something we've seen before with Don Martindale calling the defense. So it felt like Don Martindale all over again. But I don't think the Ravens played the game to win at the end because of the fact that in a regular 2-minute drill situation, you're not doing that. You're not sending 5, 6, 7, 8 on every single play and having the defense play that way. I don't want to put the accusation out there that they played to lose, because I really don't think any NFL team plays to lose the game, but I think they were experimenting more than anything else, and they were not trying to actively win. They were saying, let's see what we have here. Let's see what these guys can do in certain situations. If we win, great. If we lose, fine. It doesn't matter. I really think that's what was going on there. Now, the issue for me with that, well, there are a couple. One I just mentioned is that I would like to have seen those young guys in a regular defense to end the game and just see what they had then. But the second is they were sending those blitzes and getting no pressure. They were getting nothing. And part of that is the offense adjusts to all-out blitzes and they get the ball out quicker. But, Jake Fromm had time to throw on every single play. Guys were tripping over each other. They were over doubling gaps and leaving other gaps open. It was combined chaos, and they were either just getting to him at the very end or not getting to him at all and leaving a clean pocket. And that to me is concerning because we have seen that over and over and over again, year after year after year for the Ravens. You can make the argument that, it was the third string guys, it was the fourth string guys, it doesn't matter. Well, it's been the first string guys over the past couple of seasons, and that hasn't worked out very well. So that part was a little concerning, but hopefully it's nothing there. We're going to round out this show, though. Coming up in the final segment, we're going to be diving in to some grades, grading some players, the offense, the defense, even the special teams. So we should have stayed tuned. A lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. But first, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. And our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. And the Locked On Ravens Fantasy Leagues, I put out a tweet. We've gotten a bunch of leagues together already. There are some spots left, so if you want to be a part of the Locked On Ravens Fantasy Leagues, I'm going to put out a couple more tweets. If you also just want to DM me on Twitter, you can do that too, and then I can send you over an invite. We have standard leagues. Also, we're doing dynasty leagues on Sleeper this year. I haven't set those up quite yet, but there are openings there. And whether you're prepping for one of those Locked On Ravens fantasy drafts or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to be providing you the players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see if it is picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the week. And we're going to go with a Maryland guy here. If you're looking for a player in fantasy football drafts who will spark his new team's offense and also help you speed to victory, use a luxury pick on Bears wide receiver DJ Moore. It didn't take long for the former Panther to go from 0 to 60 after his big trade, cruising into an easy role as Justin Fields' new go-to guy. Moore was fine in Carolina, but performed better than ever while dominating targets from a young quarterback in Chicago. And of course, Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories to your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. They have air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shock struts, you name it. eBay Motors has it, and they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forward, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check, get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Also, items only, exclusions apply. We're back here rounding out Locked On Ravens on Tuesday. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. I really appreciate all the support here, the fact that you're tuning in, making us your first listen here on Locked On Ravens. Again, if you missed the live stream, you live streamed right after the Ravens game. Well, I did it first over on Bleacher Report, so you can catch me over there. We'll do that again for the Bucs game. And then I went live on the Locked On Ravens YouTube page. You can catch that here on the YouTube page, obviously. But then if you missed it, you can turn it over in audio form. You can tune in there, and it's exciting because I put it out in audio form as well. So you can find it either way there. You can subscribe here on YouTube for a 5-day-a-week Ravens content as well. You can also subscribe in audio form. It's the same show, both audio and video, so you're not missing out on anything. Let's grade some offense, some defense, some players here. I think, and I'll just go in order of let's do order for grades. So guys who I'd give A grades to, I think Keaton Mitchell is in the A grade category. I'll put Charlie Kohler in the A grade, maybe A minus. He did have a drop early on in the game, but so I'll say A minus. Zay Flowers is A plus 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 plus. Like it cannot, I do not want to see him in the final preseason game. I think we've seen enough of Zay Flowers. He's going to go for week 1. Travis Vokalek, I think played really well. He got an A from me. Justice Hill, I think got an A as well. Tylan Wallace, A. Maybe Patrick Ricard. Let's throw Patrick Ricard in the A category too. He had a couple of nice blocks, had a really solid reception as well. Players in the B category, I'll put Josh Johnson in there. I'll put Josh Johnson in the B category. I think, who else could I put in there? I think that might be it. This is offensively. So I think Josh Johnson gets a B grade for me. I think he was fine, had the interception on not a great throw. So that kind of docks him down. In the C range, Anthony Brown's probably a C for me. Melvin Gordon is also probably a C. Dante Demas, made a catch, but wasn't overly impressive other than that. Tariq Black, another guy who's a C. D grade, I'd probably put Owen Wright in the D grade category. Just, did not do a lot with his carries. James Prochet, I'll put him in the D grade as well, just because he did have the catch, and I feel bad that the ball was underthrown, so I'm not going to give him the full F grade, but I will put him in the D grade category. And I think that's it. I don't think I have any F grades for the offense. I'd grade the offense overall as probably like a B minus. That they were able to put up 28 points and he actually scored a touchdown every quarter. The box score for quarterly looks very clean, 7-7-7-7. I'll give the offense a B minus, maybe C plus. For the defense, it's a little bit weird to grade them because they played against the Commanders, essentially full starting unit outside of the offensive line. But, for guys who I think played really well, I'm going to give Ardarius Washington an A grade. Absolutely. I thought he played really well. Travis Jones also was a handful to hand. I'm going to give, those two guys. I'll give Ardarius Washington and Travis Jones both A's in this one. B grades, I'll give Jeremy Lucien a B grade. He was tied for the team lead in tackles with 7. I think that Jeremiah Moon also, he had 5 tackles, had a sack as well. DeAndre Houston Carson, he had a fumble recovery, made a couple of plays there as well. Who forced the fumble? Malik Ham forced the fumble, right? Yeah, it was Malik Ham. I'll give Malik Ham a B grade too. Really solid play from him as well in this one. Tay Hayes, I'm going to give a B grade too as well. He had a very solid game, made a couple of really nice back-to-back plays. I thought Kristen Welch was pretty solid. I think he showed some leadership on the field too, which was really nice. Delshon Phillips, I thought, was fine. Wasn't overly crazy. Guys, I'm going to give a C grade too in this one. Brent Urban, he had a really nice run stuff. Wasn't like his spot on the roster is fine. Trey Botts, I thought he was fine. Malik Harrison was fine. Brandon Stevens had, a couple of weird plays, but he was fine overall. Actually, Kevon Seymour, I'm putting Kevon Seymour in the B grade category too. He made an incredible play, was in perfect position, turned his head around, made a play on the ball, was textbook. Really excited for him. Geno, I didn't even know Geno Stone played in this game. I guess I'll put him in the C category because I did not know. Rayshon Nichols, I'll put there. He actually helped Malik Ham get the forced fumble out, so shout out to him. D category on the defensive side of the ball, I'm putting Caillou Kelly here. It might be a bit unfair because he had the play on the 2-point conversion, but the rest of the game was pretty rough for him. You could probably put him like the C/D category because I do want to give him credit for what he did on that play, but it was a struggle for him. Trenton Simpson, I'm putting in the D category. It was definitely a struggle for him to figure things out in his first NFL action. I'll put David Ojabo and Tavius Robinson, I'll put in the C category, not D category. They're C category for me. All the other guys, didn't make much of an impact. Those are C, D guys, but F grade for me, my only F grade of the night is Corey Mayfield Jr. He essentially lost the game for the Ravens on that 4th down play, got burned. And to me, that is deserving of an F grade, unfortunately. Special teams wise, Jordan Stout was like C category. He had a punt that was not great. I think it was, how long? Maybe 37 yards or something. He did redeem himself, had a 49.5 average, but there was one that was not great. Justin Tucker gets 4 extra points. He gets an A grade regardless of what he does. He's that good. He's the GOAT. We're going to treat him as such. And for a guy like Tyler Ott, you can't really grade a ton, but I'll give him an A. Nothing too crazy happened long snap wise. We actually saw the long snapper for Washington but skip a snap back to somebody. So that was kind of crazy. So overall, I'd give the defense probably a C. I mean, they played against the Washington starters. I want to give them credit for that. So maybe CC plus. This was a solid game. It was not great. It was not bad. I think it was just in the middle for these guys, but I think the Ravens found out a lot about their team, found a lot about who could play, the depth options for them. And that's what you want out of the preseason. Again, win-loss doesn't really matter from a team perspective, but the guys played hard. They did play hard, and I was impressed, especially with the defense for putting up a fight against that Washington first team offense. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to get back here tomorrow. More Ravens content from us, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.